Aisha Amjad is a family lawyer and the founder of Alpha Legal, with a strong focus on supporting women through divorce, custody, and complex family situations. She brings not just legal expertise, but also compassion and clarity to a process that can feel confusing, intimidating, and at times isolating. Aisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to make it clear before we start that nothing in this episode is legal advice. Please find a lawyer. If it's Aisha, if it's somebody else, find a lawyer, ask for actual legal advice. This is two people having a conversation, and Aisha is an expert in the field. Aisha, tell us a little bit about what you do and what led you to focus on family law out of every possibility out there.
Area of law. So I started family law practice in 2019. And what drew me to family law, I guess, initially was a research project that I was involved in during law school. And I worked alongside a professor, Dr. Julie McFarlane, and together we researched all throughout Canada and the US regarding Islamic divorces. So we probably interviewed, I don't know, I can't even remember at this point, but it was just over 100 or so participants, as we called them. So men and women who use the services of an imam to start the divorce process together and instead of the court system. So in that research, we also interviewed over hundreds of imams all across Toronto, even in the US. And that sort of jump-started my interest in this area of law. And just made me feel like there was a real need in this area of law to practice. So that's sort of
How many years have you been practicing family law?
Since 2019.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So 2019.
And so in your experience, because obviously you have a lot of experience, not only through this research project, but through your experience working on actual divorce cases, what are some of the most common fears that women have when they're considering divorce?
I think financial instability is a huge fear that many women face, especially if they are not the breadwinners of the house or not earning any income. I think the process can be very daunting and just figuring out, okay, well, where do I start and how do I go about this? So I would say financial instability is huge.
So what would you say is where they should start? Like, what's the first step that they should actually take?
I think seeking guidance.
Okay.
Seeking guidance is number one. So whether through the community, support services like yourself, just people to connect them with the right people, and having that early onset guidance is really important.
And then if someone is considering divorce,
Yes.
how would you kind of explain the divorce process in simple terms? Like a very, very broad overview.
Okay. It depends on which way you're going to, in an ideal world, the process would be two people coming together, signing a separation agreement. Yeah. So I said in a perfect world, it would be two people deciding that they want to separate, and they would, sign a separation agreement, and off they would go. So it really depends on what avenue people wish to take, and if they are going to access the court system or if they're going to do it outside the court system. But let's say that, they do decide to access the court system, then there are forms that they have to fill out. It would be advisable to obtain the legal advice of a lawyer and help them figure out how to fill out the forms and go from there. You file an application with the court. Your spouse gets served. They have 30 days to respond. Sometimes it takes longer. And then that sort of starts the process.
So you mentioned separation agreement, like in the easiest way to do it is, if things are amicable, but then, so there's a difference. I want people to know that there's a difference between separation and divorce. So separation is that first step. So let's say even if it was amicable, like as in there was no animosity, child custody could be agreed on, spousal support could be agreed on. What is it that they should, if let's say they're going through that path where they're signing a separation agreement, what's the next step after that?
Yeah, so once they've been separated for over a year, so that's a requirement that you have to be separated with no possible chance of reconciliation for a year before they can file for a divorce. Well, actually, before they can proceed with the divorce. So you could start the filings earlier, but you will not be granted a divorce unless you've been separated for a year. So the date of separation matters. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Okay. So what, in your experience, are rights that women don't realize that they have when it comes to divorce, finances, or custody? Because oftentimes in our line of work, we have women who come and they have been told by abusers, whether it's their in-laws, whether it's their spouse, whether it's their child, they've been told by their abuser that you will have no rights. Like, because you are not a breadwinner, you will not get custody. You will lose custody of your children.
Yeah.
You won't get a penny. And then for those who are immigrants or who are not citizens and may just have their PR card or things like that, they've been told that you'll actually be deported as well because you're not a citizen of the country, and so at any moment I can send you back. So what, in your experience, are things that you've seen that people or women don't understand that they have rights about?
Well, I think for start, I do have a lot of women who tell me that, I've never paid a single penny in this house. I've never paid any of the bills. He pays everything, and they fear losing their home. So that right off the bat is not true. Whether or not you've paid, whether or not you pay the mortgage or you don't pay the mortgage, or whether or not you don't pay a bill, if you are married, you have an automatic right to a share in your matrimonial property, right? So that even just something like that, they don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And then equal rights to their children and decision making. And these are just sometimes, like you said, women fear that their children are going to be taken away. That's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we obviously work with women who are in shelters, whether they're facing domestic violence, poverty, homelessness. How does the legal system protect women who are survivors of domestic violence in these situations, and where does it fall short? So obviously there are things out there to protect, but there's also gaps in the system that we can all agree exist.
Right.
So where, in your opinion, does the legal system really solidify their rights, and where does it need to kind of look more into ensuring that women's rights are upheld, especially in domestic violence situations?
Well, I think from a domestic violence perspective, my advice always is safety first, right? So making sure that you and your children are safe first, and then, as I mentioned before, it's just seeking that early on guidance. And I think that's where maybe the system does fall short, because even just knowing that first point of access and what to call and whom to call sometimes is unknown and not sure where to start. Right. So, I know you guys offer that support as well, and there's other community outreach programs, but that's really the starting point as to, okay, what do I do now? Right. And then connecting to a lawyer, many of them don't even know that they may qualify for legal aid, which is, a support system that they have through the government that they can call, get access to legal services, lawyers who may speak their language, and just sort of navigating the process from there. I think it is overwhelming and it's daunting. And I think that just from a community standpoint, I think that may be something that could be worked on a bit more.
How can we make it less daunting? I guess, how can we make the understanding of the process easier?
Well, I think what I did learn from my research, especially in the South Asian community, is that there's no conversation about a separation or divorce, right? To start with, that's really hard, right? Like even as a family, and having those words and having those conversations, I think that's a real struggle. Yeah. So I think as a community, just talking about it's okay if this is what you need to do, then this is what you need to do, right? And I think even from I'm limited in the sense where I have women reach out to me, and at that point, they haven't decided yet if they want to separate or not. And at that point, I'm not the person to speak to, right? I come in once you've made that decision. So for me, just, guiding them towards other people, who can help them make that decision. And I think that is where we fall short. Who are those people to help you make that decision before you access a lawyer?
And you're right. Like you said, that it's a discussion that we don't have in our community, especially, I'm from the South Asian community as well. And I agree. And so many times I've heard women who have come into our program, whether it's our shelter, whether it's the People's Market, whether it's our mental health program, who have said that very similar line, which is, our mothers have said, we'd rather death over divorce. Yeah. We'd rather one of you die than you guys get divorced because of that notion of shame that it brings onto the family.
The stigma.
And this is not and this is not from Islam.
No.
Islam permits divorce.
Right.
But this is from our cultural background and our learnings of, divorce is something, yes, divorce is never loved. Even by Allah, divorce is not loved. But it's something that's there for a reason. We have it for a reason. I think this is where maybe our South Asian community loses sight of, there are situations, especially when it comes to abuse and violence. This is a real reason why you should want, as a parent or as a family member, to protect your daughter or protect your sister or protect your loved one if they're in the situation, is that yes, divorce is they are able to access that.
Absolutely.
What are some mistakes or missteps that you see women make early on in the cases that may come back and really make it hard for them later on?
I think it would be to agree to terms of a separation before actually seeking guidance.
Okay.
Yeah. So just, early on, like I said, early on guidance is really important to just understand what are my next steps, because sometimes it is a wait and see approach. And while you're doing that, you are, maybe securing your finances or obtaining, financial help, or if you have, for example, if you have joint accounts with your spouse, knowing early on what your rights are and how you can access, financial support. Also documenting early on if you start keeping track of, okay, this is important, this is what I need to document. And again, you won't know that unless you seek guidance and help.
You're right. And how important is documentation, and what kind of things should women be keeping track of when they're thinking about divorce? Like, again, when I'm talking about thinking about divorce, I'm talking about from perspective of someone who's being abused or has gone through domestic violence, and where they know it's not going to be an amicable situation, where they're going to definitely have pushback.
Right.
What kind of things should they be keeping track of?
I would say keep track of text messages and communication with your spouse, communication that shows that he is controlling, that he is the abuser. I would say that that's helpful for court purposes. Documentation, and just in terms of your day-to-day, the caregiving that you provide to your children, if you attend appointments, if you obtain information from those appointments, just having an idea as to, I guess it just depends on the situation. But yeah, if you have been abused and you've, go to the doctor, keep track of that type of stuff and incidences and dates and things like that would help.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And so for women who may not have financial independence, you touched upon this earlier, what options or supports are out there for them to access?
Yeah, so they can call Legal Aid Ontario. And Legal Aid does have a program where even if you do own your property, there's ways in which that they can still help you. So I would say definitely call Legal Aid. Reach out for any community programs that might be offered through them, even through their local mosque. I know that sometimes certain mosques have programs, just reaching out to them. That would be helpful.
Perfect. And then can you speak a little bit about custody?
Yeah.
And what factors are considered when custody, and who's getting custody, and the time they're getting, the percentage they're getting? What should mothers be prepared for when it comes to this?
Yeah. Okay, so the courts look at it from the perspective of the best interest of the children, right? So what is the best interest of the children, and who is going to provide a stable, safe environment for the children when it comes to, deciding between parents and what arrangement that looks like. We actually don't use the word custody anymore. That is the word that everybody understands, but we address it by way of decision making. Okay. So who has decision making authority of the children? And that's really what people, I guess, fight over, right?
Does that also encompass who the child lives with?
No. See, that's different.
Okay.
That's different. That would be the parenting arrangement or parenting agreement, right? So decision making, I often, when I explain it to my clients, I say, it's not about the day-to-day decisions. We're not talking about who's doing pickup and drop off and who's making lunch and all that sort of stuff. What we're talking about is who will have the final say on the big decisions for this child's life. So for example, the courts, the way we do it is that they divide it into 4 categories, which is medical, extracurricular activities, religious, and then school. Right? Wow. So, for example, school, it would be, okay, is my child going to access the public system or the private system, or Islamic school or public school? So who, at the end, who's going to make that big decision, right? And a lot of the times people don't realize this, but they are already on the same page on these big decisions, right? If they share the same faith, this is not going to be an issue. If their kids are already in public school, they've already made that decision. So it just depends on at what point they're going through this and what decisions have already been made. So when you look at a paradigm of joint decision making, if you have a pattern or a history of making these decisions together, then the courts will look at that. Or in many cases, like I guess with people that access your services with the women, if they don't have good communication with their spouse, they don't have a good relationship with their spouse, then the courts will look at that too. How are these two people going to make these decisions for the children moving forward, right? So from a perspective, I would say, based on what you asked me earlier, I think for women, they need to understand that the father is always going to be the father, and it's important to remember that the system will look for ways to maximize his parenting time so long as the children are safe, right? So just because, your relationship has fallen apart and, the factors that go into whether or not he's a good father are separate, right? That makes sense?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And from your perspective, what role does the community play when it comes to this? This is obviously, you're a lawyer in this, so you represent clients. But from your experience with the clients that you've had, what role does the community play, and what role should the community play when it comes to this?
I think to be supportive of the situation, because they will be acting and sometimes be acting as intermediaries between the parties, right? Between the husband and the wife, and just figuring out, and also keeping in mind what's the best interest for the children here. What can we do to help them?
Yeah.
Right?
Again, and I agree with that. Like
Yeah.
even when it comes to our programs, we always think about the children. Like
Yeah.
the children are in the situation. They haven't chosen anything in their
No.
life. They haven't chosen, like where they were going to live, if they were going to leave, what they're going to have, where they're going to end up going. They are basically at the mercy of the parents and the court system.
Yes.
And so, yes, I agree that looking out for them and their best interests should be paramount, I think, for everybody.
Absolutely.
You are in a very difficult line of work.
Yeah.
And I know our frontline staff is as well. What gives you hope when you see this day in and day out, when you see these situations, families breaking apart? What gives you hope?
That's a good question.
If anything gives you hope, and I hope it does give you hope. You're a very positive
the
person.
thing is,
That's what I want people to know. She's a very positive person. So clearly there's something out there that does give you hope.
like the way I look at it, I can't, I'm here to guide. I'm here to help. I can support. I can't fix, as you know, like you can't fix the system.
Yeah.
You could just, do your little part as to moving forward. That's why even in my practice is very diverse. I have a large segment of my clients are on legal aid. And then, I have a private practice as well. And trying to combine those two is challenging. But I do find the work very meaningful. I do feel as though I'm helping. And I guess that's the selfish pleasure that I feel from it. So I think it just gives me hope that I do have hope. I have hope that I see many of my clients who were separated, and then they come back to me and say, well, I'm getting remarried again. Can you help me with a prenuptial agreement? So that's hopeful.
No, I'm
That's
so happy
hopeful.
to hear that.
And also I feel, I don't know, I feel like when a person decides that they no longer want to be in a marriage, I think that's like a alhamdulillah moment. Okay. You have come to a decision. It may not be the decision that you thought that you would end up in or where you would be, but alhamdulillah, you've made the decision now. Let's move forward. I don't see it as such a bad thing. I get right into like, let's get going.
Yeah.
Right?
Nobody gets married for the purpose of getting divorced. Like
Right.
that's not something that people do.
No.
So the fact that anyone could even think about divorce is a very, very big step to take.
Right.
And usually it's taken when things have gone bad and worse and worse and worse. And
Well, that's what I mean.
yeah.
I think people have had those moments where they've sought the help, or they're trying to figure out, do I leave? Do I stay? Do I leave? Do I stay? So if you've come to that decision, good for you.
Yeah.
Let's talk next steps.
Yeah.
Right.
And what do you want every woman who's listening to this episode, what do you want every woman to know about her rights in this process?
Well, I think just to know that you have rights, and, seeking the guidance of community support workers and lawyers early on to help you navigate those steps is where you want to start.
Wonderful.
Huh?
Aisha, this was great, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit.
Okay, sure.
I'm going to take us into our rapid fire questions now.
Oh, gosh.
And so these are unrelated to our topic. It doesn't have to do with divorce or anything like that. These are just rapid fire questions that I just love asking. I just love knowing these random things about people. So I'm going to ask, don't take your time to think.
Okay.
Just answer top of mind what comes.
Okay, sure.
All right. Ready?
Sure.
Okay. Coffee, tea, or something else to start your day?
Water.
Even better. Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Favorite way to unwind?
Oh, gosh. Just being by myself.
There you go. A small win recently that made you smile?
Oh, boy. Okay, this is going to be so silly.
No, share it. As long as you're not sharing client names, we're happy.
No. This is just, it's silly. But yesterday, I had to make dinner at 8:15 in the morning. And my Instapot, anybody who uses the Instapot, there's a valve on the Instapot. Okay, that was missing. Everything was already in. All I had to do was close. I have to leave. I have to get to work. And I was like, oh, God, what do I do? So I Googled quickly, do I need the valve? I said, you don't need the valve if you want to slow cook. So I quickly turned on the slow cooker, closed it. And for the first time ever, used a slow cooker, left 4 hours, came back, and then dinner was
It was
ready.
a great dinner?
It was a great
What did you cook?
Oh, okay. So I'm married to an Egyptian. So they make a spinach dish with meat. So that's what I made.
Very
it was like a
nice.
spinach and meat dish. And yeah, dinner was made.
Okay, great. And everyone said it was great.
Okay, that's not the win here.
a win's a win.
It was good. I'm a mom of 3, so
Wow,
to have
mashallah.
everybody happy in the household with what you've made is very unrealistic. So I'll take 2 out
A
of 3.
win's a win. We'll
A
take
win's-
it. We'll
yeah,
take it.
Yeah.
What's your favorite comfort meal?
Oh, comfort meal. I would say dal.
Dal.
Yeah, dal.
That's my nightmare meal.
Are you serious? Yeah, that's my comfort meal. Yeah.
Good for you. You know what?
Yeah.
Maybe I just need to give dal another chance. I feel like everyone that I ask about comfort meals who are South Asian, they say dal.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, maybe I think I've had dal twice in my life.
Oh.
And it was both times when I was very, very young, when I had no option of what I could eat.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is not my cup of tea. So maybe I just need to give it a chance. I
Dal
guess,
is
in my
great.
adult
It's
life.
easy. It's simple. It warms my heart. It's great.
Okay, there you go. What is a place that helps you reset?
I would say the gym.
Good. What's your favorite book, podcast, or show right now?
I'm not watching any shows right now. So if you have any suggestions, I'd be open to that.
I'm not watching anything either. That's why I have 3 options: the book or the
Yeah.
podcast.
Podcast wise, I just finished the Mel Robbins. Like I kind of follow along with that.
Right.
So that was good. And book, I'm not even reading a book right now either.
You're just reading your law books. That's it, and your
There's
case notes.
There's no time. There's no time for books right now.
What if you could give your younger self one piece of advice? What would it be?
That it's okay to fail. It's okay. Just keep going.
That's good advice for everybody.
Yeah.
To be honest, because I think like a lot of kids nowadays, I feel like have so much anxiety because they have social media has also, I think, made it difficult for people that you have to perform, you have to be a certain way, you have to get certain grades, you have to have a certain job, your house should look a certain way, you should dress a certain way.
Yeah.
More than even for us growing up.
Yeah.
I think that it's the lifestyle now and the environment that kids are growing up in now is so hard. So I mean that's great advice and it's great advice for me as well because
Yeah.
I think sometimes you lose sight of that it's okay, like we're human.
Yeah.
We are meant to make mistakes and we're meant to fail and we just have to get right back up and fix things afterwards. And my favorite question to ask anybody, anytime, anywhere: if you knew that a meal was going to be your last meal, what would you have?
Oh my gosh.
And you can choose a drink, an app, a main, and a dessert if you want.
Okay, I would say for drink, I would definitely say water.
Okay.
Yeah. And for food, steak. Yeah.
Okay, great. And you would make that steak yourself or you get it from a specific restaurant?
Okay, so if I was gonna go to a restaurant, then maybe Jacob's.
Oh my God. Love Jacob's.
Yeah, Jacob's. And if not, then
Jacob's, sponsor us.
Yeah, my husband makes really good steaks too. So
Okay.
yeah,
Wonderful.
one or the other. Yeah.
This was such an important conversation. And obviously the rapid fire questions were such a great way to know who you are as a person as well. So
Right.
thank you. Aisha, where can people connect with you or where can they learn more about Alpha Legal?
Okay, so definitely emailing me is the best, I would say. And I guess you can provide my email address.
We'll have the email.
My
in
email
the
would
caption.
be my email would be the best. I also have my number listed as well. So even just trying to call me on my work line is fine too. But that would be the best way.
Perfect. Thank you very much,
No
Aisha.
problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Sundays with Sakeenah, the podcast. A huge thank you to Aisha for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, and for making this process feel more accessible to everybody. If this episode resonated with you, please follow the show, leave us a review, and share with someone who you may think would benefit from this information. If you or someone that you know is navigating a difficult situation, please remember that you are not alone. Support exists in many forms, and there are people out there who can help you through it. You can find us on Instagram at Sakeenah Canada or at Sundays with Sakeenah for more resources. We'll be back soon with another meaningful episode with another powerful woman. Until then, take care of yourselves. See you next time.